I was a freshman in the big city with little money while trying to get my education. I had set up in a small apartment, which was all I could afford at the time, and it was in one of the roughest parts of the city. I had to make do with what I had offered, and that included a job as a burger flipper around the corner from where I was living. The neighbors, which I later learned were drug dealers and a few poor families, seemed like no one bothered anyone because their problems were enough to deal with. Despite all that, the apartment block was to be condemned in a few months, so I had to quickly save up what I could and find a new place soon. So, this was the best I could do. The block itself was about 6 floors high with 4 apartments on each floor, each a considerable size except for mine, which was as small as a sardine can, but whatever. About a week into living in this dump, I met a few of the drug dealers who seemed nice enough, but I decided not to hang around them. In passing, while making small talk with one of them, let's call him Joe, he asked if I had anything strange going on in my apartment, any weird noises coming from my room. I told him no. I was curious why he would ask such a thing, and he just bowed his head and murmured, "No reason. It's an old block, so weird things do happen around here. Keep yourself in check when you find out, eh?" I scoffed and nodded my head and went inside. "All right, sure thing. See you, Joe." I walked up the stairs, shaking my head, thinking it was just some weird local nonsense to scare newcomers. After my first few nights of sleeping in my apartment, nothing out of the ordinary happened, but what Joe had told me stuck in my mind. I did my best to put it out of my mind, but I later found out it was not nonsense. It was almost 3 a.m., and I fell asleep with my laptop open, watching a movie while doing my homework, slumped to my side against the wall. That's when I heard a loud banging of one of my cupboard doors. I jumped up thinking one of these drug users broke in because my front door was locked with a butter knife and a chair under the loose doorknob. Ghetto, I know. I looked around and saw no one but a few of my cups on the floor. I rubbed my eyes, thinking perhaps one of these mice around here knocked it off my shelf. But as I bent over to pick it up and put it back into the open cupboard, it shut just before I could reach upwards. I jumped back, cursing loudly as one of the kitchen drawers suddenly opened, nearly hitting my thigh. My bathroom light and faucet suddenly turned on as I gasped, watching all my cupboard doors opening and shutting violently while the lights flicked on and off. I ran toward the door, took the butter knife off the frame, and kicked the chair backward. It flew further than I had hit it, as if it lifted off the ground and flew itself clear across the room. I swung the door open and saw Joe sitting, leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette, while a woman and her 2 kids were doing the same, looking tired and annoyed when they should have been scared. That's when I realized their apartments were going through the same thing. I was the only one in a panic, and Joe put his hand on my shoulder. "Chill, bro. Give it a little bit. Stay away from the stairs, though, eh?" I was wearing fear, listening to what was going on in all the apartments, shaking with the sound of something smashing. Suddenly, right beside me, the sound of many footsteps running up and down the stairs, but there was no one to be seen. Covering my ears tightly in fear while Joe calmly smoked his cigarette, the whole block shook, and whatever was happening in every apartment. Doors were slamming even in the empty apartments as I watched the whole thing happen right before my eyes. I was on the brink of a panic attack, even as Joe just chuckled at my reaction. After about 5 minutes, all the shaking and spasms came to a sudden stop. I took my hands off my ears and looked at how horrified as he stood, lit up another cigarette and clapped his hands, raising his voice. "All right, everyone back into your rooms. You know what to do. Let's do this and get back to sleep." Joe looked at me and gestured his finger. "Follow me, kid." And we went into his apartment. I saw everything tied and taped down, nothing but a few smashed plates and garbage thrown around his apartment. He reached into his drawer and handed me a few rolls of duct tape and sat down on a wooden chair, which was nailed to the floor. A rude wake-up call, wasn't it, huh? This happens every week on Thursdays for some reason. You've got to nail or tape down anything that can move, or you're in for one hell of a mess. I'm not sure what it is, but my guess is a poltergeist type of thing. It started acting up when the announcement of demolishing was made about 8 months ago, and every time it seems to get worse. Many people have died here, and I'm guessing their spirits don't like it. They don't want to leave, so we just wake up 5 minutes before 3 and wait it out. And you guys just live with this? "Is this a normal thing?" I asked. Joe shrugged his shoulders and laughed. "Yeah, I guess so. But I'm tired, yo. You might want to clean your place up, though, and watch out because there are aftershocks sometimes." I nodded my head and made my way back into my apartment and saw the mess I had to clean up. It took me at least an hour to clean up the glass plates and find my laptop thrown across the room with missing buttons but still working, papers scattered, and my bowl of food thrown against the wall. The next following week, I was prepared and even set the alarm 5 minutes to 3 a.m. and double-checked everything. I stepped into the hallways and stood beside Joe and met the mother and her 2 kids standing across from me, and the whole activity had begun again, just as the next week and so on. It wasn't long until everyone who lived in the block had to move. Joe went upstate, and I found a small basement room to rent. That whole ordeal was something new to experience, and that block has since been demolished to brick and splinters. It would have been nice if Joe told me from the get-go, but I guess I wouldn't have believed him and would have thought it was nonsense. I guess you just had to be there to believe it.